Oh, we're rolling. Okay. All right. Okay, everybody. So, the movie that I'm going to be reviewing, as you can see from the title card at the very beginning, I get somewhere over here, um, will be Forrest Gump. And this movie, I've seen this, I remember watching this movie a lot when I was in early high school. I think it was like, I was 14 years old when I first saw it, and I watched it a lot throughout my at least early high school. Um, I'd seen it a lot, and I remember up until I'd watched the movie, I had heard a lot about it. All I really knew was about it's this stupid guy who does a lot of great things, but doesn't really realize the significance of what he has done. And really, the movie does go a lot more into it. It's the whole film is told as a flashback because it starts with the title character sitting on a park bench getting off a transit bus, and the rest of the majority of the movie, I think like an hour and 40 minutes of the movie is him explaining and telling everyone on the bench as well as us the audience what happened to him and what got him to this point. And the best thing I can say about this movie, which is probably an overused cliche, is that the movie is very magical in the sense that it brings you to this naive idea, a simpler way of looking at the world, and more of an idea of how you can sort of have maybe not the highest IQ, but be able to see more the emotional side of the world. You know, maybe instead of being book smart, you can be more emotionally smart, that kind of thing. Because Forrest is a character who is born with an IQ of 75, which, according to the movie, is about a few points below average intelligence. So he's not that brain dead. Um, and the movie does, it's almost like a fictional biopic in a sense, because you go back to Forrest when he's a little boy up to the point where he's like in his mid to late 30s. And Tom Hanks plays Forrest throughout the majority of the movie. And I remember hearing somewhere that John Travolta was considered for the role of Forrest Gump, but I think Tom Hanks captured it pretty well. I'm not sure how well John Travolta would have fared in this role, because I think when most people think of John Travolta, they think of Danny Zuko, Tony Manero, Vincent Vega. I don't really think anyone who plays those three characters. I'm not sure if Travolta would have had enough range to pull Forrest Gump off. But I think what made Tom Hanks a great choice was because Tom Hanks is one of those actors where you can hand him almost any script out there and he could find a way to play almost every character in the book or create his own character. And that's what makes Tom Hanks such a talented actor, is that he can become he can find ways to either change his body or construct his brain into a way of understanding the psychology of a character. I don't know if John Travolta is that talented, and I don't think he is. And no disrespect to John Travolta, I just think he's really only good as some macho tough guy. And in the 70s, he was good as a macho pretty boy. So, yeah, you can't really be macho pretty boy or macho bad guy or macho tough guy and play Forrest Gump. Not really. You can't really do that. And the movie, there are a lot of standout moments because Forrest does go from being a kid with braces on his legs to a high school football star, Vietnam War hero, business tycoon. But I think I think for people, when people say Forrest doesn't realize the great deeds he's done, I think a lot of it is the fact that he is happy with what he's accomplished, but it seems like he doesn't really seem to appreciate those because there's only one part of his life that he only cared about, which was Jenny, his childhood sweetheart. And now the movie does chronicle Forrest and Jenny's life trajectories where Forrest is going on the upper end of society and doing all these great things. Jenny is falling into the 60s and 70s drug culture before finally pulling herself back out of that rut to have a happy life for a brief moment for a short amount of time. I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but the movie does have a heartbreaking ending, but it's also very sweet to see Forrest finally being where he wants to be. I mean, I know this movie's been out for 25 years, and I'm pretty sure people know how this film ends, but I'm going to be nice and not spoil everything, but I think you could probably guess where this is going. The special effects I think are pretty good because they did a really good job at photoshopping Tom Hanks into a lot of these newsreels or press conferences that took place in actual historical moments in history. Like when he's talking to the presidents, I thought they photoshopped them in pretty well. When he's at the University of Alabama watching the school get desegregated and him being edited in with the senator that's calling for Forrest to make this happen. That was pretty cool. One of Forrest's buddies, Lieutenant Dan Taylor, ends up having to have half his legs cut off from war injury in Vietnam. And for Gary Sinise, who plays Lieutenant Dan, they put some special blue wrapping on his legs so they could digitally remove them later. And that's probably one of the best effects in the movie because it really looks so convincing that you can easily buy for a second that, okay, this man is crippled from the knees down. And what I also love the most about Forrest is that even though not everyone he comes across is the nicest person, most of the time he has a very friendly, naive demeanor, which kind of plays into the innocence of the character, almost like he's a little kid with an adult's understanding of the world, but not too much of an adult understanding of the world because he's not a cynic. But I mean, there are times where he will get defensive and he will stick to his guns and be with his friends, but for the most part, he's kind of a nice, loving person. He's kind of like a big brother to so many people, and to his son, he's sort of a loving papa. And and Tom Hanks, he does a good job at giving a lot of emotional depth to the character because there are scenes where Forrest does get angry, and there are scenes where you can definitely tell his heart's been shattered. And there are a few really emotional scenes that will get you teary-eyed. So if you're someone who's emotional or cries at scenes in movies, I would say get the tissue box ready. You're not going to need it as much as like movies that are really going to make you cry buckets, like Brian's song Marley and Me. You're not going to need a copious amount of tissues, but you are going to need at least a few to get through this film. And also, the movie, it's telling a very tall tale, so there's a lot to cover. It's 2.5 hours, but it's worth every minute of it. And Tom Hanks, it's also noted that he won the Academy Award for Best Actor for this film. And that was his second win in a row of for that award. And I believe he'd done the same thing that Spencer Tracy did in the 30s, with pretty much the same idea. So this is at a point where Tom Hanks is at the top of his game. I'm not sure if I'd say the top of his popularity, but definitely the top of his game acting-wise. And the 90s was kind of a huge decade for Tom Hanks. I mean, he had League of Their Own, Philadelphia, Forrest Gump, Toy Story, Apollo 13, Green Mile, Saving Private Ryan, Sleepless in Seattle. And so, yeah, Tom Hanks was... He was the actor that if you wanted to get a great performance out of anybody for a role, you got Tom Hanks. And this movie, it's a cinematic classic. I'm reviewing it because it came out 25 years ago, but very same year I was born. And I kind of figured that when I realized it was hitting its 25th anniversary, I was thinking, okay, I can talk about this. So there's actually a lot of movies that are hitting anniversaries this year that I am excited to talk about. So it should be fun to go over those films. But for now, this review is concluded. I was going to review Detective Pikachu next week, but I think I have different ideas. I'm not going to be able to see that movie this week, but next week I should be able to see it because I just had to see Endgame again because that was amazing. And you can see the review for that on my YouTube channel. Just click on the Mike Abler link below and you'll find it somewhere. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys Monday with my cover of I Drove